Turley, Rhode Island professor says science, statistics, and technology are inherently racist. So this is by Jonathan Turley at jonathanturley.org, emphasis on zero hedge. We have previously discussed the radical declarations of University of Rhode Island and Director of Graduate Studies of History Eric Loomis, who has defended the murder of a conservative protester and said he saw nothing wrong with such acts of violence. Until it's being visited upon them, then suddenly it's a problem. A view defended by other academics. Now, it may be a little bit of a tangent, but since they brought it up in this article, academia is not on your side. They have been completely infested and co-opted by communists. They are the enemy. If you are a parent and you send your kids to college, all you're doing is giving the enemy troops another soldier. Loomis is now back in the news with the declaration that science, statistics, and technology are all inherently racist because they're developed by racists who live in a racist society, whether they identify as racists or not. I know of one racist we could get rid of right now to help fix this problem, and his name happens to be Eric Loomis. It is a curious position from the person who heads the graduate studies in history at the University of Rhode Island, and is a pasty white guy. For many, science and statistics are fields that are inherently objective, not racist. Well, science is, if it's real science and not the fake science that the regressives push. Statistics have always been bullshit. Now, statistics, when it comes to like legitimate objective study, are fine. But statistics, when used in propaganda, everyone knows it's bullshit. That's why we even have that famous quote. There's lies and damn lies and statistics for a fucking reason. While racism can certainly impact any field in a myriad of ways, these fields are based on proven experiments and calculations, unless they want to kind of rig the data, you know. One can support scrutiny of our programs to root out racism without dismissing all fields as inherently racist. Yet this view of math and science is being voiced by others, including those who denounce math as a tool of whiteness. I'm done. I am fucking done fighting this fight, to be honest with you. Right now, I'm already I'm planning my exit. I think the U.S. has a few more years left before it's completely irredeemable. But at this point, fine. Go ahead. Denounce math as a tool of whiteness. Stop teaching math. Stop teaching science. Stop teaching real history and start teaching Wakanda instead. Why not? Go ahead. Go ahead. Why don't you do all that? And you guys are just going to collapse. The Loomis's statement came as part of a twat in reference to New York Lies article and added, "This is why I have so much contempt for those, including many liberals, who just want the data. The data is racist." I have defended the right of Loomis to make his past comments as a matter of free speech. While Loomis has shown nothing but intolerance for opposing views, he has every right to express disturbing extremist views. See, this is where I disagree. People who would want to censor me deserve to be censored. I believe in freedom of speech only for other people who believe in freedom of speech. The second you try to take away someone else's rights and freedoms, you forfeit those rights and freedoms. On this occasion, he is making a statement that would appear to undermine the basis of graduate studies at his school and other schools. Yeah, you see that was the University of Rhode Island? Why would anyone want to go to your school with this dipshit there? While I still view the statements as protected, they would appear to undermine the faith in the basis of much of the work of his colleagues. The twat prompted the University of Rhode Island Assistant Director of Communications Dave Lavallee to issue a statement. Mr. Loomis's recent social media posts on science, statistics, and technology are entirely his own opinions and in no way represent the positions or values of the University of Rhode Island, except for the department that he's in charge of, and he gets to force those positions on everyone else. His recent twat runs completely counter to URI's first cornerstone value, which says we pursue knowledge with honesty, integrity, and courage. How are you going to do that when you keep hiring people who don't, huh? Can you explain that to me? If you keep, you're not only hiring people who don't do that, you're putting them in charge. No one believes your bullshit. In making such remarks, Mr. Loomis calls into question the work of thousands of researchers and scientists across the country, and particularly the outstanding work done by our talented and diverse researchers at URI. While Mr. Loomis has a First Amendment right to make such comments as a private citizen, he does not have the right to make such unsubstantiated claims in the context of his university position or role. If he was making a comment in favor of the other side of the political spectrum, he would probably be suspended right now. I'm pretty much guaranteed he'd be suspended right now. From my perspective, the most important aspect of that statement is the acknowledgement that Loomis has First Amendment protections in uttering such viewpoints. The question for the university is whether those viewpoints undermine his role in leading graduate studies. Yep, what did I say? Particularly in dismissing the very basis for much of the work as racist. Loomis claims that all science, statistics, and technology is racist, period. It is a patently absurd statement that is devoid of any intellectual foundation or inquiry. And this is the brainlet in charge of leading graduate studies. This is the type of person your kids are going to be studying under if you send them to college. It will certainly appeal to many who relish extremist and rejectionist views, including most in academia. However, it is the very antithesis of our intellectual mission as scholars, and it does a great disservice to the many respected academics at the University of Rhode Island. Are there any still there, though? I've found that really the only people worthy of respect in academia have been gone for a while. Although I guess there are actual scientists still there doing actual science, but slowly they're being replaced with the diversity hires that are like, oh yeah, fuck, we don't need astronomy. We should just replace all that shit with gender studies. Nevertheless, Loomis wrote a column entitled "When Fascists Attack" for the site Lawyers, Guns, and Money. Speaking of, he's the fascist that's doing the attacking. Loomis is listed as one of the handful of members who contributed to the site. For the record, this is the same site that ran a column by a Colorado law professor who claimed that raising questions about the current year -1 election was akin to the Holocaust denial. We see how the media lies about literally everything. I wouldn't be surprised to see Holocaust denial actually be on the rise, given this. I've seen the camps myself when I lived in Germany, so I at least know they existed. But for people who haven't seen them in person, I can fully understand why they'd be skeptical. Almost everything else the media tells them is a blatant fucking lie. Why would they believe this when they have no way of verifying it? After all the fucking lies the media has told me the past few years, I question everything written in the history books now. Every time I read a history book and I'm reading about some overblown, over-the-top villain, I'm just like, okay, how much of this shit is actually true? And how much of this was exaggerated by people who had an agenda against this guy? That attack occurred a few days after the election when I noted that there were irregularities in the election, including an error reporting the results from a district using Dominion software. I noted that the error involving a few thousand votes was quickly corrected and did not indicate any widespread fraud and would not affect the outcome of an election. It merely raised the question whether such systems were still vulnerable to human error. The site denounced that statement was akin to denying that the Holocaust ever occurred. No surprise. In his column, Loomis blasts the university by writing, "I guess this is how my administration responds to the need for anti-racism in American life and on campus, by openly throwing professors who talk about racism and technology under the fascist bus. Great job, URI." So, URI, your fucking move. What are you gonna do now? Dude, I promise you guys right now, if I was in this guy's position, if I was saying ignorant shit on Twitter under my real identity that could be tied to my employer, and my employer not only didn't fire me on the spot, but kind of like, played, just kind of ran a little bit of protection interference for me, saying, oh yeah, we don't agree with what he said, but he has the right to say it. And then I responded to that by calling them out. It's like, oh, I guess my employer, they must be just a bunch of racist Nazis and throwing me under the fascist bus, huh? I would be fired on the fucking spot. So URI, if this waste of oxygen is still employed next week, we know where you really stand. It appears that now Rhode Island, in Professor Loomis's view, is opposing anti-racism efforts and supporting fascists by rejecting his view of science, statistics, and technology. Yeah, it's funny how they're suddenly supporting fascism and racism by calling out a fascist and a racist. It's funny how that works. Loomis insists in his rejection of all science, statistics, and technology as racist was an utterly uncontroversial point when the facial recognition technology is throwing innocent black people in prison. Maybe I'm just not aware of those cases. I know there's a few cases of like false positives, but they still have to be investigated. I know of a few cases where facial recognition software falsely identified someone and they were arrested, but after a few hours, they were released because the investigation revealed they didn't do nothing. Has anyone actually been sent to prison over a false positive from some facial recognition spy software? Maybe I'm just missing those cases. It reflects much larger problems of how racism influences our technology and science in an inherently racist society. I actually agree. We are living in an inherently racist society, except the racism is not against the groups of people they claim it is. This is utterly uncontroversial, or it should be anyway. We see this over and over and over again from how the medical profession ignores pain in black patients no matter their social status, how black people are wary of the vaccine because of traditionally poor treatment by the scientific community, and how all sorts of forms of technology end up exacerbating discrimination. So... discrimination. Let's take a look at what that really is. You could say it's having standards in a lot of cases. This entire push for inclusivity is an entirely current year social construct. Every other time in human history, there was nothing wrong with excluding people who didn't belong. And that's coming back with a vengeance, by the way. What is striking about this response is that it is divorced from his actual statement. Yeah, he's just gaslighting. It is raising insular issues like facial recognition that have been discussed by others without rejecting the entirety of science or statistics. Indeed, I just published a long study that addressed that issue and the underlying causes as part of a comprehensive look at biometrics and privacy. Loomis has referenced a couple of specific areas where racism is a well-documented problem, and many of us have sought to suggest ways to address racial injustice. This is not a defense of Loomis's categorical rejection of all science, statistics, and technology. This view is not uncontroversial. It is unhinged and irrational. These people are deranged lunatics. Of course, they're going to come up with stupid ideas like this. And remember, parents especially, these are the people that are teaching your kids. These lunatics are who you are sending your kids to. Just think about that. Oh man, I am so excited to tell you guys right now that finally, after about a year of build-up and shilling, we have launched Blade Devil on Indiegogo, and so far it is doing so well thanks to awesome people like you. If you haven't backed it yet, then please check the links in the description and check out Blade Devil on Indiegogo. You will not be disappointed. Looking forward to seeing you there.